Hey everyone, Shanda here. I have a wonderful guest with me today. Her name is Regina with Regina Hyman Photography. And she has for all you Disney brides out there, you definitely need to pay attention. She's got a great background, and I'm gonna let her share that with us in a moment. She has a ton of experience. She's here to share some really valuable tips with us. And she has an incredible offer that she's going to share with everyone in the group at the end. So welcome, Regina. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. So let's start just real quick. Can you give me, share with you, we just were chatting about it, but I'd love for you to share your background, how you got started in photography and how you started your business, just real quick.
Yeah, perfect. So I graduated from photography school back in 2004. So we've been doing weddings for 16 years now. And when I graduated from photography school, my primary goal was to move to Florida and start a business working for the Disney wedding photography team. So I did that for about 7 years. Over that time, I was photographing approximately 200 weddings a year for them. And so over the course of the 7 years, over close to 1,500 weddings at least under my belt. So during that time, my husband and I were also focusing on starting our own business in photography and cinema, because that was always the primary dream, was to just have our own business, work for ourselves, doing what we love. So after we got married, we decided to just both leave our full-time jobs, go into business for ourselves. We had enough business established at that point, and that was 9 years ago now. So it's been a lot of fun. We enjoy everything we do, and we're just blessed to be able to do what we do here in Central Florida, because we get destination clients from all over the world, as well as we love to travel. So we also travel anywhere and everywhere to photograph weddings. And
Yeah, I cannot believe how many places you've traveled to photograph weddings.
Yeah, we definitely, travel's always been sort of an obsession of ours, and we are such, wedding saps. We love anything and everything about weddings, and combining with photography, it's just the perfect blend of putting all the things we love together in one pot.
That's awesome. Well, one of the challenges I see a lot of couples, and this is something I struggled with until I found the right person, but I was so overwhelmed when I was looking for a photographer, because we all know how important photography is. It's what you have when the day's gone. You have your photos, and it's just heartbreaking when they don't live up to your expectations. But there's a lot of photographers out there, and it's so overwhelming to know if you're choosing the right one. And that's something, if you could share some tips with our group about how to find the right one. And not that there's one best one out there, there's the right one for each different couple.
Right, exactly.
But I'd love it if you could share some words of wisdom on how to find them, how to know if they're the right one, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. What we always tell every bride that we chat with that's looking to book with us is that, it's important to make sure that you love the photos that your photographer is displaying, and that they have good experience, and that you like their style of work. That's what immediately connects you when you're looking through the Knot or Wedding Wire or Googling the photographers you find you like. It's because of you like their photos. But it's also just as important to make sure that you like who they are, you like their personality, and that you guys click, because you're going to spend more time with your photographer on your wedding day than anybody else other than your groom. They are by your side. Yeah, there's actually times that you'll probably even spend more time with your photographer, because they're in the dressing room with you. So it's important that you click and you form a bond, that your personalities mesh. I always tell people it's similar to finding the perfect wedding gown. When you try that gown on, typically you get tears in your eyes, it's a match, it's a perfect fit. It's the same thing with choosing your photographer, that when you click, and your personalities just mesh. You want someone that's going to make you feel like you can be you and feel comfortable throughout the day, while also having fun, because being in a wedding, I was in a wedding one time where the photographer was like a drill sergeant, and he was just cold and angry and yelling at everybody to get in place all day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible experience. And one of the things that's so important is you want to have a wonderful experience from start to finish on your wedding day. You want to enjoy every second of it. So you need to be with a photographer that is going to help you provide and understand creating that wonderful experience for you.
That brings up a good point. I kind of think liking your photographer ranks right up there with liking their pictures, because I did a wedding not too long ago, and the bride was just so irritated with the photographer throughout the day. I swear I see that look on her face
Yeah,
in her pictures. Like,
that's true.
wasn't
Yep.
enjoying it, and it showed. And
Yep.
I hope she loves her pictures. But yeah,
But
if
the
you're
fact
happy
that
and having
even
fun and you're comfortable and you're relaxed, it's gonna show.
right, because even if you love your photos, you want to also look back years down the road, and you're not just going to remember the photos, you're going to remember the experience you had while taking them, because that
Mhm.
plays into how your mood for the entire day goes, is how you're playing off of somebody and how they're interacting with you can, you know, put you in a good mood or it could bring you right down. So
Yeah.
you want someone that's going to inspire you to just be joyful.
You know,
So
oh,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
just gonna say also, like when choosing a photographer, one of the things I struggled with, you know, you're looking through all these sample albums. I didn't really know what I was looking at. Like, that's a pretty picture. But then I realized, am I looking at quality photography or a pretty bride? What I like her flowers, and that's what attracted my attention. I didn't know if I was really being a good judge of a quality photograph. Is there
Mm-hmm.
any tips you could give us on really identifying quality work?
I would definitely suggest, besides, you know, a lot of people, social media has become such a thing right now that lots of times brides don't even tend to go to a website. They might just scroll through an Instagram feed or Facebook and determine who they like or don't like. We suggest digging as deep as you can. So you see their ad wherever you originally found them, go dig through all aspects of their website, besides their social media feeds. And the number one thing is to read the reviews, because the reviews are going to give you the bride's perspective on how they felt about their photos, their experience, their overall everything that brought it together. That, you know, reviews I think are probably one of the most important things to go through when choosing your photographer. But back to what you said about, it is hard, I think, for brides to identify what they truly know is like good photograph versus, hey, it's a pretty picture. So oftentimes we'll send clients or brides that are looking to book us full wedding galleries, so they can see a full wedding start to finish or multiple weddings, because that's really the only way to get a feel for not just what was the best five photos taken at that wedding. So you're not just looking at a portfolio, which is typically what Instagram or a website will be. If you can see an actual client's full wedding gallery, start to finish, dressing room to the exit at the end of the night, you'll get a real feel for the actual style, the quality of the work in different lighting situations, because a lot of people can take great photos out in the perfect, easy lighting situation, but put them in a difficult one. You want to make sure your reception photos are going to look as good as, you know, your outdoor ceremony photos. So that's what I would suggest, is ask to look through some full galleries, and you'll get a better feel for the
Yeah,
quality.
I definitely, you know, you can pick your top dozen photographs and make a beautiful website that might sell brides and grooms. But seeing that wedding from start to finish, you see how the story unfolds.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, so the next thing about choosing a photographer is, you know, they all have packages, and those can be so confusing also. And it's hard to compare apples and apples. And you don't just want to go with the cheapest photographer, obviously. You want to make sure you're getting good value. And every package seems to include something different. It's hard to know what you need. And anyways, what should they be looking for in packages?
So we always suggest that the most important thing for you to be looking for is the hours of coverage. That is what you need in a photographer. Is you want to make sure you're covered for all those important moments. So, you know, if you're discussing with a photographer what your day is going to look like, and they're suggesting you need 8 hours of photography to really cover everything that you want, start to finish, then go with the 8 hours of photography. Don't skimp and do 6 hours of photography and then have an album included, because you might be missing out on moments that, you know, maybe your day only needs 6 hours, but if it needs 8, you'd rather have the memories they're already created, they've been photographed, the digital file is somewhere that you can always later down the road create an album, add an album onto a package. Once your wedding is done, you're going to get a lot of money for gifts, which is always a good thing, and you can spend that for an album down the road. So we always say, if an album's in the package, you can afford it, that's great. If it's not, definitely the hours of coverage to make sure you have all those memories at least captured is the most important. We also suggest looking, and this is just, you know, from our perspective, what we like to provide for a client that we think is important. every photographer might be different, but we do think that it's important to provide a copyright release. We feel 100% that it's your wedding. We took the photos, but these are your photos. They should belong to you. So we provide a copyright release to any and every client that books us because we want you to have full ownership of your images. That way you can print them wherever you like, besides the fact, of course, you can order prints through your gallery and through us directly, but we do want you to have full ownership of your full resolution images.
That's wonderful.
So full resolution is a good word to look for in packaging too. You don't want to be provided with medium or small quality photos that you're not going to be able to create a large print out of.
Yeah.
Also editing and enhancements. We feel like there's a lot of photographers out there that might say they're going to edit 30 or 40 images for you, but you don't necessarily get to pick those 30 or 40 images, and then the rest could be provided just straight out of the camera, however they were. We don't necessarily agree with that process of doing things. We edit and enhance every single image ourselves in-house. We don't outsource anything because we feel like we know our clients better than anybody else. So to send their photos to someone else to edit them is not going to understand what the bride actually wants. So we edit and enhance every single image, so it is guaranteed to look its best before it's ever provided to the client.
It's wonderful.
Let me see if there was anything else that I thought that. I think that those are the main things, because when it comes to any additional products or albums, the things that confuse brides is the extra products, I think.
Yeah.
So if you set that aside and just think hours of coverage that you want, full resolution, copyright like release, and edited and enhanced photos, those are your primary things, because you can always add products on down the road. I'm sure your photographer is going to keep those photos on file, so you can always come back and order an album later.
Yeah, you know, I want to touch on the timing real quick. You know, a lot of people, just to understand how many hours you need, you know, how do you advise a couple how many hours they might need for good coverage?
Yeah, so obviously every wedding is different. Usually when we're chatting with them, we're going to try to get approximate on their guest count. How many guests are they expecting? How many immediate family member their wedding party size, to get, you know, an idea of how long photos might take, and what's important to them. If they want to start with photos in the dressing room getting ready all the way through a sparkler exit at the end of the night, then we basically judge what time does your ceremony start at, and we're typically going to start 2 to 2.5 hours prior to the ceremony. That way we have time for getting ready, pre-ceremony photos, and we'll kind of walk them through the timeline of how we suggest their day be photographed so that they're not rushing. The last thing we want them to do is feel like they're rushing through their day, and then they miss out on just enjoying it.
I mean, it is so important, and if you're rushed, it takes the joy out of it. The day goes by, everyone says, oh, the day goes by so fast. You hear it all the time, but you still don't get how fast it goes by until you live that moment. And the feeling of
it's like a blink of an eye.
Yeah, and feeling rushed is so uncomfortable. It's also going to show in your pictures, and it's going to take away from some of the joy of the day of feeling rushed. So I always try to cushion your time schedule, be very, very realistic. Don't fit in anything that you don't absolutely have to do on the day of the wedding.
Right.
And talk to your photographer about how much time they need for the photos that you actually want.
Yeah, because every venue is different. If you're traveling between venues, you want to make sure you leave enough travel time in there besides the, you know, the photo time with family, as well as, you know, at the end of the day, the most important thing you're going to look back at is the photos of the, you know, the two of you, bride and groom together. You as a couple those are going to be your favorite photos. Family photos are definitely, you know, super important, but you always want to make sure you're not skimping the time that you have as a bride and groom, as a couple, to get those photos together. And we always, the highlight thing that we always tell couples is it starts with hair and makeup. So you want to make sure that you schedule enough time for your hair and makeup to start and be done, because if they run late, then your entire day just trails behind and is late and rushed. So, you know, even if it means you give yourself more than enough time for hair and makeup, at least like you've got extra time, or you're ahead of schedule rather than behind schedule throughout the day.
I couldn't agree more. And the hair and makeup, it's not just the hair and makeup artist that can throw you behind. It's your bridal party that don't respect the time schedule and show up late. You know, but it's the start, and then the trickle effect for the rest of the day. Definitely. Um, you know, we have a little time left. If there's any tips you want to throw in there, any wedding day tips, photography tips, you're a wealth of information. You've seen more weddings than most of the people out there. So love to
Yeah,
hear from you.
yeah, I'd love to share with you guys briefly just a couple of our, our top wedding day tips that we would suggest to anybody planning their wedding right now. Actually, one of the things I want to mention real quick is with COVID, is everything in the world is totally different. As we all know, we're living in a very strange place right now, and you're trying to plan weddings, and it's difficult and stressful. But what's happening is because of all the spring weddings, and now even in the fall weddings postponing due to COVID, 2021 and 2022 are booking up very quickly. So the amount of time that you would typically maybe look to book a photographer out, I know most bridal guys, I think, suggest around 10 months. You probably need to look a lot further because of all the postponements. I think with every vendor, they're booking up earlier than they normally would, just because other weddings had to be pushed back. So my suggestion is, when you find a vendor you like, just lock them in as soon as you can, because they could be gone the next day. Things are changing every day.
I think we might be seeing quite a few weekday weddings next year.
Oh yeah, and actually, it's always been common here in Central Florida for us to have weekday weddings.
Oh yeah.
But right now it's even more common, because when brides are trying to rebook, the weekend dates that they want are already booked, so they have to select like a Tuesday or Wednesday. And fortunately that works here in Florida, because most of our clients are coming from somewhere else and they're on vacation anyways. So it's a destination, but it is definitely changing the world of weddings. So that's a little bit of advice for if you're planning your wedding right now, try to plan ahead. We definitely want to encourage people to remember that, choosing your photographer and your photos is not just about the photos, it's about the experience. And it's something you'll never regret down the road paying the extra money for. You'll never regret having great photos and a great experience that are going to last for generations to come. If you skimp on it and you say, oh, I want to save the money, this photographer's cheaper, but I don't like him as much, you most likely will regret that, and that's not something you can ever get back. At the end of your wedding, the only thing left to remember, everything else you spent your money on, is the photos. So your flowers are going to wilt, your bar has been totally drank up, the food is gone, and you have photos and video to remember it by. So, sometimes it's worth putting in the extra if you have to move around money in the budget to make sure you get what you really want to have. Because those photos, we want them to last 2 generations. They tell your love story.
Yeah, they do. That.
And I think you'd probably agree with me on this one. An unplugged wedding is definitely something we advise, if possible, because seeing iPhones and iPads being held up in the ceremony in the back of your photos and video is just a huge eyesore, as well as people tend to step out into the aisleways. They think they're going to get a great shot on their iPhone, and it turns out to be a blurry mess. There's so many polite ways nowadays that you can either have a sign at the entrance to the ceremony explaining unplugged, or even have your officiant before the ceremony starts mention it. That will definitely make for better ceremony photos if you can have it.
I want to jump in and tell a little personal story on that. I didn't put a lot of emphasis on unplugged, and our officiant did make an announcement. None of my friends listened, of course, but what I goofed so bad, and every time I look at my pictures I regret this, so hopefully someone can learn from this lesson. But the bulk of my family wasn't able to attend. They all live out of town in a small little rural town, so we went to them for a second reception afterwards. So none of them were there, so we live streamed it for them. And I asked a very dear friend, I handed him my phone and hooked, got him all set up and asked him to record the ceremony. Well, it didn't occur to me to pay attention to where he was sitting. And he was sitting in like the second row with his phone stuck out in the aisle.
All the photos.
Every picture. And she got a few without it, but like there wasn't a way around it really.
Right.
And so we do have a second video from the live stream that is really adorable, and I love that I have it. But the price we paid is that phone is in most of the pictures.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I set myself up for that one.
But those are things that happen, and lots of times, like right now in this day and age, everyone wants to do live stream, or they're having a family member go Facebook Live or something while they're getting married, and that's fine. We just suggest that you consider like having them chat with us and say, hey, you know, where should I stand to be out of your way? And lots of times people will do that, and it's very respectful and it's great. And overall, it's not just for, you know, the ease of us getting your photos, it's for your final product. We don't want you to see cell phones and iPads and all sorts of different gadgets in your photos. That should be just primarily focused in on the two of you during the ceremony.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, unplugged is always a good thing. I don't think anyone will ever regret going unplugged.
Only if they have a bad photographer will they regret it. Because
yes.
I just recently was chatting with the bride, and she is so glad she didn't have unplugged because her photographer was so bad.
That bad that photos did a better job, or phones did a better job. Yeah, that is sad. So don't be like that bride and skim too much. And when you know you see something or somebody that you love, go with that. Don't go, if you're gonna cut things, cutting on your photography is probably, and I know it sounds biased saying that as a photographer, but even as a bride, like you don't want to miss out on having those great moments. And then, you know, I think the most important thing that we like just want to get out there to you guys is this: your wedding day is about you as a couple. And there's so many other aspects of family, friends, bridesmaids that are going to jump in and try to give you their opinions on things. Try to do the best you can to stay focused on what's most important to you, what matters to you guys as a couple. That, you know, this is the joining of the two of you. That overall, you have to do what makes you happy as a couple, and the way you're going to want to remember your day. So even throughout the day, if it gets chaotic, remember to try to find your, you know, find your other half across the dance floor. Don't forget about it. Remember, this is about you, and you know, stick together on it so you can enjoy the planning process together. Because we find lots of times grooms want to be a part of the planning process, but the brides kind of push them out. Because they want to have full control, which is, you know, totally understandable. But at the same time, you never know how much like fun you can have actually planning the wedding together, so that when it all comes together, it's your event together as a couple.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Now, Regina, you know I adore you, and I can't help thinking, like, I would have flown you to San Diego for my wedding in a heartbeat. We would have had so much fun. You'd have hung out with us all weekend, had a blast. But I've always wondered, like, how does a destination photographer, like, is it twice as much because you're bringing them in and you have to pay for their whole vacation? Like, I've always just kind of been curious about that. And if I'm curious, I'm sure other members are curious. So just real quick, can you shed a little light on how? Yeah,
of course. That's a great question. So, you know, we photograph weddings all over the place, and we do our market research. So if you're
go to Europe, don't you?
What's that?
Don't you go overseas even?
Yes, we do. Obviously, that's a little less common because it's a further trip, but we have done events in England, France, and Italy, and yes, we will literally travel anywhere you want to go. Caribbean is very common. You know, being in Florida, we do a lot of Bahamas and cruise line weddings in the islands. So basically, we do, you know, depending on where you're gonna inquire from for your wedding. For example, if your wedding is in New York, we know how much approximately a flight is going to cost us to New York. So as our flight, we're only ever going to think about the cost of one night in the hotel, your wedding night. If we stay extra nights, we're charging that. That's our charge to ourselves. We're not going to be charging a client for that. If we need a rental car, that will be things that we factor in, but we don't necessarily penny pinch what we're charging. We're not charging you for our food while we're out there eating. We're going to look at the market of what your going rate for photographers is in that area and come up with packages that are comparable to that, so that we're not overcharging you for, you know, you could honestly probably hire us to photograph a wedding where you're getting married at a comparable price to what the actual photographers in the area are going for. We love to travel, so we're always willing to work with you. And basically, when a bride inquires for a destination wedding, we set up a time to chat and discuss what it is that they're looking for, where the venue is, things like that. And then we customize a package for them to try to work best within their budget that's going to give them everything that they need. So it doesn't necessarily end up costing you a lot more than it would hiring a local photographer. So if you love a photographer that's out of state or even out of country, just, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask. Ask for a quote, figure out if it's doable, and if you can make it work, it could be the best decision you ever made. Most of our destination clients that we've had that we've traveled for their weddings, We've now done weddings for their bridesmaids, their sisters, their brothers. Like, it becomes a family trend where you almost become a part of the family, which is great, because by the time you get into your second or third wedding with a group of people you already know so well, you're literally a part of the family, and it's a fun time. They're all comfortable with us. And then, you know, the same thing with, we get a ton of destination weddings where our clients are coming from other countries here to Florida to get married. And we may never meet them prior to their wedding day. So we do this, we do Zoom calls. We spend as much time trying to get to know them ahead of time as we can. And then it becomes a lifetime bond. One of my best friends lives in England, and it all started from a photo session 6 years ago. And now she's one of my best friends. So you just never know how and where you can meet somebody or how you could connect that. Look for the connection.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because you guys all know I'm in San Diego. There are tons of great photographers here, but I happened to be traveling up in Tahoe and met a wedding photographer, and we hit it off like this. We are still super good friends. And so guess who did my wedding? Yes, all these photographers here in San Diego, but I had my Tahoe friend come do my wedding. We already had a bond. My husband adores her. My family just has a blast with her. And so we flew a photographer in, even though there's plenty to choose from here. I'm not knocking any of the photographers.
Right.
I went with that connection though. So
yeah, you just never know where you're going to find that connection, and oftentimes it could be from a distance. So
yeah.
don't ignore the feeling of the click.
Right. Go with your gut.
Yeah.
So if I can figure out how to share my screen here, Regina has a wonderful giveaway offer that she's going to share.
Everyone loves giveaways.
Real quick, no giveaways, but it's an incredible offer. Real quick, before I share my screen, can you throw your website out there? And I'll post all your information with this video too,
Yeah.
but go ahead and throw your website out in case people want to stalk you and all your social media pages.
Yeah, of course. It's just obviously www.reginahymanphoto.com. And that's REGINAHYMAN photo.com. Well, actually, you can probably see my name at the bottom of the screen. So ReginaHymanphoto.com.
Perfect. And I will share all that information.
Yeah, and you'll be able to link right there through our blog and all of our social media. We'd be happy to connect.
All right, so let me see if I can share my screen here. All right. Does everybody see that? Can you see that, Regina?
I see it, yep.
All right, so you want to explain how your incredible 50% off package works?
Yeah, definitely.
This is an insane deal, guys. So anyone who is interested in an absolutely fabulous photographer needs to pay attention to this offer.
Thank you. Yeah, so we really wanted to put something special out there for this group. Anybody who's taken the time to watch us all the way through, you deserve this offer. So we're going to be doing a giveaway, and basically it's 50% off your photography package. So in order to enter, all you have to do is you follow the steps on this flyer. So you're going to follow us on Instagram, which is at Regina Hyman Photo, and then also follow, if you're not already following, the Wedding Planning Club. All you have to do then is send us a direct message on Instagram to at Regina Hyman Photo with the code words Wedding Planning Club, and that way we'll know that you found us through this group, and you will be automatically entered to win the 50% off giveaway. So we would then reach out to you, let you know if you've won, and provide you with packaging information, set up a time to chat so we can discuss what photography packaging would be best for you, and then you can cut 50% off right off that price. So it's pretty amazing. That's, I mean, no matter where you're located in the country or out of the country, 50% off is going to save you a lot of money. So yeah, definitely enter. Everyone loves to win something, right?
Definitely. And when will the winners be announced?
Well, within, I would say we want to give you guys a couple days, so maybe within 2 days. Let's say 2 days within the time that this video posts, and everyone's had the chance to watch it. That way, we'll give everyone a little bit of time, and so we'll give ourselves 2 days from the time the videos post.
Okay, perfect. I'll put that with the video as well. All right, well, I think that's it. I love this offer. Makes me wish I was getting married again.
Well, if you ever need photos for anything else, or if you're in Florida and you just want some photos,
oh, that'd be fun.
give me a call. And hopefully we'll be in San Diego sometime soon. It's been,
oh, there we go.
10 years, so that would be fun. We've actually got quite a few brides and grooms out there, so yeah, you could always gladly come back.
Awesome. All right, Regina, well, it has been a wonderful time getting to know you and
You
learning
too.
more about photography. I even picked up a few tips during this, so thank you so much.
Thank
And
you so much.
yeah, we'll be in touch, okay?
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.